A very good evening to you and welcome to today's edition of the Lunchtime News. I'm Nadim Majid. Let's first take a look at your headlines. Water levels at several Mahawali reservoirs have reduced by 50%. A national policy on national heritage. United Nations urges Maldivian factions to come to a political settlement. On to those stories in detail. The Mahawali Authority says that water levels at several Mahawali reservoirs have reduced by 50%. The Director General of the authority, Gamini Rajakarna, said that amongst those affected are the Victoria, Kotmale and Randenigala reservoirs. He, however, noted that even though the water levels have reduced, it will not affect cultivation of the Maha season. However, the water level of the Ulhitia Ratkinda reservoir has reached spill level. Meanwhile, the Ministry of National Heritage plans to prepare a national policy on national heritage. Minister Dr. Jagat Balasuriya stated a committee of specialists had been appointed for this purpose.
The Minister of National Heritage said that the committee would consist of religious leaders and university lecturers. The minister noted that almost every nation in the world has a policy on national heritage. The committee will hold discussions in the near future on protecting all that is endemic to Sri Lanka.
United National Party and opposition leader Ranil Wickremesinghe met a group of Chinese representatives in Colombo today. Now, the meeting took place this morning at the opposition leader's office. A group including parliamentarian John Amaratunga and Sagala Ratnayaka also participated in this meeting. In more local news, the Criminal Investigations Unit of the Ambalangadu Police has discovered a stock of fuel which had been stored without a license. The police said the 2,500-litre stock of fuel was discovered during a raid last night.
The raid had been conducted by the Criminal Investigations Unit of the Ambalangadu Police based on a tip-off. The police said that the fuel had been stored underground at a store in Kahawa. The manager of the store, who was taken into custody on the charge of storing fuel without a license, is to be produced in court today. The police said that investigations were being conducted to determine how the suspect had come to possess such a large amount of fuel. The police said that about 6,400 litres of fuel had gone missing from an adjacent car park about a month ago. Fuel has been supplied from this location to vehicles engaged in construction work on the Galle-Colombo Expressway. 2 security officials have been taken into custody over the missing fuel. The police said that they had discovered another 100 litres of fuel which had been sold to another party. The police said that further investigations are underway.
Meanwhile, a conference was held yesterday under the theme The Seen and Unseen Problems in Education. Parliamentarian and JVP Politburo member Anurakumara Dissanayake expressed these views at the conference.
The bus that the lower classes in our country have been stuck on is the bus where you are scolded by the conductor, the late train. This is what the lower classes have, but the upper classes have Monteros and Prados. In health, the common citizen gets the hospital without a doctor, but the others have some of the most luxurious hospitals in the country. The only thing that is left, where everyone is considered somewhat equal, is education. Now the government is trying to make education a privilege of the haves, while the have-nots are being made to be served those people and become labourers in their workplaces. Should the people of this country make way for such a transition, they are planning to take away that right from the poor and make it a privilege of the rich.
පිරිසක් බවට පත් කරන්න මේ උත්සාහ කරමින් තිබෙන්නේ. ඒ නිසා මේ අධ්‍යාපනය ගෙනෙමින් තිබෙන පරිවර්තනය එහෙම පරිවර්තනය. අපි ආන මෙරට පුරවැසියන් මේ පරිවර්තන ඉඩ දිය යුතුද?
An individual has been murdered with the use of a sharp weapon in the Murutalawa area in Peradeniya. Now, the police said an unidentified group had entered the residence of the victim and carried out the murder at about 10 last night. The victim is a 57-year-old male. His wife, who was critically injured in the attack, has been admitted to the Kandy hospital. One person has been killed and another injured when they were struck by lightning in the Moyakanda area in Chilau. The police stated that the incident had taken place at around 9 last night. The deceased is a 36-year-old fisherman who is a resident of the Kamasiawatta area in Chilau. In some more sobering news, 2 of 3 leopard cubs handed over to the National Zoological Gardens in Dehiwala on the 3rd of July last year have passed away. The director of the zoo, Bashwara Senanka Gunaratna, stated that the 2 cubs had been killed by a viral affliction, adding that the 3rd cub was recovering from the illness.
The 3 cubs were given to the National Zoological Gardens on the 3rd of July last year by the Anuradhapura Wildlife Office. The cubs were found by Anuradhapura Wildlife officers after they had been separated from their mother in the Tibbowa Reserve. Subsequently, they were brought to the Dehiwala Zoo, where a short while later they were put on public display. However, one of the cubs contracted a disease on Saturday, while the other 2 contracted the same disease the next day. Although assistance had been obtained from foreign zoos to treat them, 2 of the cubs passed away on the 8th of this month. Director of the Dehiwala Zoo, Bashwara Senanka Gunaratna, stated that the deaths were probably caused by a viral affliction. He stated further that investigations are underway to determine if the deaths can be attributed to any other causes. Veterinarian Ganga Vijay Tilaka stated that the post-mortem examinations on the 2 cubs took place at the Dehiwala Zoo and at the University of Peradeniya. The other cub is being housed in a special enclosure within the zoo and is being treated.
A wild elephant has been killed after being hit by a train in the Galwangwa area on the Habarana-Trincomalee railway line. Our correspondent said that the pachyderm had been killed when it was hit by a Trinco-bound train at about 11 last night. The elephant is said to be about 15 years old. A post-mortem examination is to take place today. Moving on to some sports news now. The 3rd match of the Australian Triangular Series between Australia and Sri Lanka is currently underway at the WACA grounds in Perth, Australia. Sri Lanka skipper Mahela Jayawardene won the toss and elected to field first. David Warner and Matthew Wade opened the batting for the Australians. The hosts were 1 down when the score was on 22 when Wade was caught behind off a Nuwan Kulasekara delivery for 1 run. Ricky Ponting was then trapped in front by Lasith Malinga for 1. David Warner, who was looking dangerous, was clean bowled by Angelo Matthews for a well-made 34. Kulasekara, who was brought into his 2nd spell, took a brilliant catch off his own bowling to dismiss the dangerous Michael Hussey for 23 runs. A short while ago, Australia were on 171 runs for the loss of 5 wickets after 37 overs. And on that note, we wrap up this Friday edition of the Lunchtime News. It's been an absolute pleasure having you with me. Join us again at 1:55 on Live at 55 for the facts and figures on the latest headline-making news, as only News First can deliver.